Hello class, good morning. Today we have a new lesson, which is about globalization theories and dynamics of local and global culture. So there are two theories when it comes to globalization. It says it either leads to homogeneity or heterogeneity. When you say homogeneity, the world is becoming more similar, with many things becoming the same. So this is oftentimes linked with cultural imperialism and Americanization. So when you say cultural imperialism, it is when one culture tries to influence the other cultures. So oftentimes this happens when a rich country tries to influence the other countries near it with its own culture. One example of this class was during the time of the Spanish colonization of the Philippines. The Spanish tried to eradicate or remove our old religion. In exchange, they wanted us to adopt their new religion. And over time, we could see our own culture slowly becoming more similar to those Spanish. So we have the Spanish language at the time. We also had Spanish clothing, Spanish food, etc. Nowadays, however, class, it is said that the world is becoming more Americanized, or it is undergoing the process of Americanization. This is the process where non-Americans adopt images, technologies, behaviors associated with Americans. So when you say a Western style of clothing like t-shirts, your jeans, etc., etc., technology, so the mobile phone, the car, all of them originated from America. Even behaviors class. Nowadays, Filipinos are becoming more open to going out and having coffee, eating at fast food restaurants, watching a movie, etc. All things associated with Americans. This is also seen as more and more countries adopt neoliberalism, capitalism, and the market economy. So neoliberalism, countries are more open to free trade. So when you say free trade again, that is trade without much tariff, quota, or other restrictions imposed by governments. Then you have capitalism and market economy. So that is the current trend moving to almost all countries. They are adopting a more capitalist and more market economy driven economies. Next, as IMF is said to offer a one size fits all approach when treating many countries. IMF is a international bank. It's a very big organization that is lending money to countries. However, it is said to have a one size fits all policy. In other words, it is offering the same amount of interest to all countries, regardless of how poor or rich it is. So, in other words, sometimes rich countries, when they have more capability to pay their loans. So, poor countries sometimes have a harder time to pay off their loans, especially since it is the same interest rate. In other words, it is said that the world is experiencing the process of McDonaldization, where it is becoming more efficient, faster ang mga transaction, etc., etc. Similar to McDonald's. When you go to a McDonald's, the process itself is very easy. You just go to the queue, you wait till you're ready to order. After you order, your food will be given to you. So parang ganun daw yung mundo class. It's becoming like a McDonald's, very fast, nagiging more similar na mga processes para efficient na siya at mas mabilis. We also sometimes see global media slowly becoming more having more preference for Western books, movies, etc. So as I said earlier, our religion is an example of a cultural imperialism brought about by Spain to the Philippines. Also, the process of Americanization, again, class, yan yung pagiging Americanized ng mga non-American na people. So, nakita nyo dyan, iba-ibang lahi, they are more or less adopting the American way of living. So, yan, for example, sa Japan, many Japanese businessmen, they they no longer wear Japanese style of clothing or when they go to their business meetings. They often wear Americana or American style of clothing, so they coat and tie. Similar dito sa Philippines, and other countries, when you're entering a business at when you're entering a business or a business meeting, etc., you are often expected to wear your business attire of coat and tie din. Hindi na masyado yung expect na ang Pilipino magsuot ng barong. So again, Filipinos and other countries, they are more or less becoming more open to watching westernized movies like sa Hollywood movies, or reading western style of novels o yung mga novel series galing sa West, gaya nito si Harry Potter. And even yung mundo daw mismo parang naging McDonald's na. In other words, it's becoming more efficient pero at the same time becoming more similar. Nawawala na daw yung mga iba-ibang mga kultura due to globalization. So class, that was the process of homogenization or homogeneity. When you say naman heterogeneity, it is the opposite of homogeneity. In other words, according daw to heterogeneity, globalization is leading to the creation of new cultural practices, new economies, and political groups. So instead na mas nagiging similar daw, actually mas dumadami daw yung iba-ibang culture dahil sa globalization. One example is glocalization, which is the combination of the two words, globalization and localization. So yung mga businesses class or yung mga napakalaking kumpanya sa buong mundo, they are pushing or moving towards strategies na pasok or sangkop sa kung saan silang market gusto pumasok. So let's say sa Philippines, if McDonald's wanted to become successful, they had to adopt the rice as a side dish. Sa America class, wala masyadong rice. Or kung may rice naman, hindi yan masyadong popular. In America, they're more popular ang tinapay, salad, mashed potato, or vegetables. So, in order for McDonald's to become more successful sa Philippines, they adopted rice as the side dish. So, other examples is yung mga car companies gaya kay Ford, Samsung, etc., etc. They have to adapt their cars to whatever country they are planning to import their cars to. So, one ways they can do that is to have the local emission testing or standard. Sa iba-ibang countries class, iba-iba ang emission standard. Kung gaano karaming lumalabas na CO2 sa tambutso ng car, kailangan nila ni-adapt kada country. Or kahit class yung steering wheel or manibela, kung saan yung placement niyan. Majority ng countries sa mundo, it is left side. Left side. Kasi right side driving yan. So, nasa left side yung manibela. Pero in certain countries, gaya sa Great Britain, Australia, and Canada, if I'm not mistaken, class, they have it on the right side yung manibela. Kasi left side driving sila doon. So, more or less, si Great Britain and yung former colonies niya, yun yung nasa right side yung manibela. Okay, so aside from that, these companies daw, they have to tailor their marketing to those local and local culture and geography, with special attention not to create cultural appropriation. When you say cultural appropriation, it is when you're using the culture of another country in a disrespectful way. Examples niyan class, yung America dati, they would often paint their face black para they could act as black people. That is very inappropriate, especially if you're a white actor. Kasi meron naman black actors talaga doon. Kahit ngayon class nowadays sa Hollywood, they are said na nagwa-whitewashing sila. When you say whitewashing, you're casting people of ethnicity, pero you're casting white people to play those roles. And lastly class, glocalization daw is also occurring sa kumpanya mismo itself, the company itself. So maraming transnational or multinational corporations na ang individual nila na branch sa kada country, ang nag-head niya normally is a local person. Hindi yung taga ibang bansa or yung taga kung saan host country. Let's say McDonald's. Host country ng McDonald's is si USA. Pero most likely, ang nag-handle ng branch dito sa Philippines is a Filipino. Bakit? Kasi yung Filipino, siya yung alam ang anong kultura natin. Our culture, our beliefs, kung kailan ba ang Pilipino mas open lumabas, mag-celebrate with their family. So iba-iba kasi ang holidays natin. For example, sa atin very big ang New Year, ang Christmas. Baka sa ibang bansa, they do not celebrate the New Year or Christmas. Diba? Si China, for example, iba ang Chinese New Year. So, hindi ganun kalaki ang New Year sa kanila, sa atin na, which is January 1. So, let's talk more about what happens when those cultures meet. So, this is the dynamics of the local and the global culture. So, the global flows of culture have increased considerably with the technology. So sa globalization, dahil sa technology, sa media, napakabilis na mag-move ng culture. This has led to three different perspectives when it comes to global cultural flows, which are differentialism, hybridization, and convergence. Start tayo with differentialism. So in essence, class, this just argues that cultures are very different from one another, and when they meet or interact, very superficial lang daw yung nangyayaring pagbabago, or wala actually pagbabago daw mangyayari. Sometimes, class, when those cultures meet, there is potential for catastrophic collision or pag-aaway-away ng mga cultures. This is seen in Samuel Huntington's theory, which shows a clash of civilizations. So this takes place daw after the Cold War, and hindi na daw political economic issues yung nagiging main difference, kundi cultural differences na. So for example, may mga iba-ibang culture siyang sinasabi dito, yung Cynic or yung mga Asians, Orthodox or the Russians, Islamic, and Western or yung mga countries in Europe and America. So he says here that due to these increasing differences and when they interact, it causes more clashes. Dahil nga incompatible na yung mga iba-ibang cultures. He cites the economic struggle between the Cynic and Western civilizations. So when you say again Cynic, those are Asian civilizations. And when you say Western, yung mga Europeans yan, Americans, there is often daw economic struggle between those two. Kung sino ba yung mas magaling mag-produce ng goods, mag-trade ng goods. So you can see that sa struggle between USA and China, both are very good manufacturers ng products. Main advantage ng China is yung bilis niya at efficiency niya mag-manufacture ng goods, and napakamura yung labor market. USA naman, class, alam natin very good ang quality sa USA, very stringent ang rules and guidelines. So there's often a clash between USA and China. Next clash daw sinasabi dito is violent clashes between the West and Islamic civilizations. So when you say violent clashes between the West and Islam, we're talking about sa mga terrorism na nangyayari. Oftentimes, yung mga ibang Muslim na countries, they have extremist groups gaya ng ISIS. They perform terrorist acts. Same din naman sa USA or sa Western countries. Some Western countries, yung mga tao doon, they oftentimes have racist tendencies sa mga Muslim doon. Sometimes, nagpapatay sila ng mga Muslims, nagkakaroon ng hate crimes, or yung one time na, if I'm not mistaken, sa New Zealand, may nangyari na kung saan live stream niya ata yung pagpatay niya ng mga Muslim sa isang mosque, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. Pero last class, this theory daw, it is criticized as being stereotyping Muslims daw as prone to violence, among other criticism. In other words, parang stereotyping to ng mga kultura. Yung Muslim daw violent, yung mga taga-America liberalized or mga liberal ang isip. That is stereotyping people. Next class, we have this hybridization. This view, class, sees na due to the increasing meeting of different cultures, maraming hybrid na nangyayari sa mundo, or integration or hybridization na nangyayari. So, examples niyan is yung heterogeneity theory na we talked about earlier. This leads to creation to hybrid entities, and globalization din daw yung pwedeng maging example ng hybridization. This leads to distinct and interesting outcomes depending on what global and local forces meet and interact at a specific geographic location. Okay, another theory class na similar sa hybridization is yung scapes daw ni Arjun Appadurai. So when you say scapes, he has 5 scapes: the ethnoscape, technoscape, financescape, mediascape, and ideoscapes. So parang when those meet daw, they are fluid and constantly changing. Similar daw sa mga iba-ibang kultura. So yan class, as you can see, due to the increasing ni McDonald's, increasing number of branches niya all throughout the world, dumadami din yung iba-ibang mga menu niya. And very specific lang yung menu niya sa country na yon. So as you can see, maraming iba-ibang klaseng menu si McDonald's, depende kung saan yung country. So for example dito, may McVeggie. Ang McVeggie, perfect yan sa India. Kasi sa India class, bawal sila kumain ng baka. And yung iba, hindi kumakain talaga ng karne. Maraming vegetarians doon. Crispy Chinese, pwede yan sa mga Chinese na people. Baka naharap mo lang yun sa China. So napakaraming hybrid entities na nangyayari daw sa mundo. Another hybrid entity na we could say is yung jeepney ng Philippines. Galing yan sa Amerika dati, na brought over during the time of World War II. Yan ang ginagamit ng American forces. Pero nung naiwan yan sa Philippines, more or less, hinhybridize natin, pinahaba natin, at yan na ngayon yung ginagamit natin as our public utility vehicle. And last class, the last view on when the different cultures meet is of convergence. So when you say convergence, nagiging more similar daw yung mga cultures, nagiging homogeneous or may homogeneity na nangyayari. In this case class, may isang dominant na culture na ini-influence daw yung iba-ibang cultures. For example, English class, this is becoming the international language kahit hindi naman talaga siya yung in-appoint as international language. And this is because napakaraming countries na nagtitrade with USA to the point na they are adopting US as their new language or their international language. Similar yan ngayon sa ibang mga countries slowly adopting Chinese or Mandarin. Kasi napakarami din countries nowadays nagtitrade with China. And if you have some idea sa Mandarin, mas mabilis kayo makakapag-usap or makakapag-trade. Aside from this, there is also adaptation of non-Western countries of Western constitution and politics. In other words, almost all countries nowadays, they are becoming more democratic. So, also guys, the Western style of clothing, like pinag-usapan kanina yung mga t-shirts, pananamit, is nagiging popular na throughout the world. And yun na yung sinusuot ng mga tao. Kahit saan kang part ng mundo pumunta, may makita kang tao na nakapag-t-shirt at nakapag-shorts or nakapag-jeans. Also, yung Western style of conduct is being adopted na. So, yung mga fast food, Western style of idea of, let's say, paglalabas sa Friday, TGIF, or let's say, yung pagnonood ng movie sa cinema, pag-go to parks, recreation, etc., etc., more or less galing yan sa Western style of thinking. Critics, however, of this theory of convergence or this perspective say, it is not one-way street. Hindi lang daw yung dominant culture yung nag-i-influence ng other cultures, kundi siya din daw mismo is na-adopt niya yung cultures ng ibang tao. For example guys, America, ang Americanization or American culture daw, very strong, ina-adopt daw ng ibang bansa. Pero guys, America itself, it's a mixture of different cultures. Kasi napakaraming tao nag-immigrate to America from other places in the world. So dala din yan yung mga cultures nila. For example, si spaghetti, famous yan sa America, pero originally galing yan sa Italy. Si sushi is very popular in America, pero galing yan sa Japan. They are very fond of international cuisine sa America. May mga Filipino doon na nagka-open ng restaurants, very popular din yun. Art as well, yung art sa Orient, yung mga Japanese art, Chinese art, Filipino goods, yung mga sa atin, yung mga native products natin, yung parang upuan na gawa sa rattan, very popular na yan sa America nowadays. Okay class, so those are the two theories. You have homogeneity, heterogeneity, and the three perspectives on what happens when cultures meet. You have your differentialism, you have your class of differentialism, hybridization, and convergence. So thank you class so much for listening. Please take care of yourselves and stay safe. Thank you class. Goodbye.